Good afternoon, wherever you're at. Hello, welcome to the Hip Senior Live community. And today, with Julie Cumulus and Mama Bird / Heather and Lily. And we are going to be talking about things like pros and cons of having these birds and other large birds, as well as what to do to prepare for the inevitable case that you might be incapacitated or worse, and how to what you should be thinking about ahead of time to prepare for life in general, right? Heather and Julie, welcome.
Hello. Yes.
All right, so I'll go from right to left, and since Julie is to my right, I'll have Julie introduce herself, tell a little bit about her, and then we'll ask Heather to do the same.
All right, I'm Julie. I am a technician in avian specialty, which got me into the bird world about 6 years ago. And I also am the parrot mom part-time of Cumulus. I also have a red belly and a parakeet. I had an African gray, but he passed in December. So those are my main experiences with having birds myself, but I obviously work with them every day.
And Heather?
Hey, I'm Heather. A lot of people call me Mama Bird from TikTok, and this is Lily. I've had parrots now, cockatoos, for about 4 years, and my primary job is being a cockatoo mom, and I love it. They are a full-time job, but I love it. And that's really the extent of my bird experience.
You have 3 of them, right, Heather?
3 cockatoos, and then I have 1 little cockatiel, Millie, and I have an Amazon name bear.
Goodness. You only need headphones to walk into your, like, earbud think covers to walk into y'all's houses.
It's a nut house here. It is. I love it though. You either love the cockatoos or you just can't do them. It's one, it seems like there's one extreme or the other, and I love them.
My experience with birds is I had a parakeet when I was young and worked a lot with him, and his name was Sunny. He was all yellow, so we were really creative, and taught him how to say a few words and stuff. He was a really sweet bird, believe it or not, and I was the only one he liked. And so I learned from Julie that cockatoos, and specifically, either like you or dislike you. There's like not really a happy medium in between there. Am I right, Julie?
Sometimes. I would say more so they love hard and they hate hard. There are some middle of the roads with them people wise, but when they love you and then when they hate you, it's very dramatic. They're very dramatic just in general.
Shared with Julie that last year I went down to the Tampa area. My parents are up in Homosassa, and one of their neighbors has a cockatoo named Bobby, who, Julie, I think we figured out that he was actually the oldest living cockatoo, remember?
83, right?
Something like that. 83, 86, something like that. Yeah. I heard that though, the actual owner of that bird. So my mom's neighbor was taking care of it, but their other neighbor is the actual owner of it. And they own some mermaid, something or another that Netflix is doing a documentary about there in Homosassa. And they're the actual owners of Bobby, and something went down. So they actually have him at the mermaid place in town or whatever. So I'm hoping that he's getting a lot of attention and notability and stuff like that. But he loved me. He wouldn't get off me. And that she was like, wow, I've never seen him love somebody so fast. And I was like, the only reason I knew how to do anything with this bird, like ask him to step up and like that, was because of Julie. So I am grateful for that.
Great.
You enabled me to have a really good experience with Bobby. So that was cool.
I'm so happy.
All right, so let's get started a little bit. I want to start with let's start positive. Let's start with some of the pros of having larger birds.
You want Heather to start?
You guys choose.
Wow. My goodness. I just love the cockatoos. I really like the macaws, but they don't seem to like me as much. I think I'm a little nervous. The beak is kind of big. I don't really know what the pros and cons would be, because it's more like species specific. Like different birds have different kind of traits, different personalities. all the birds are, even within the same species, their personalities can be very different, but they still have they have the traits, like the cockatoo is definitely neurotic and high maintenance. But the species each are so different. And it's kind of hard. Like I love the little cockatiels. I love the cockatoos. I love the parakeets. I like the macaws. They just don't, I just haven't met one that's liked me yet.
Oh.
I'm looking though. I'm going to keep looking. I'm hoping.
They're out there. I know it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can handle this one, Julie.
As far as the pros go, and I've been a tech in small animal before avian, and I have to say, hands down, relationships I've built with the birds are on another level than the relationships I had with dog and cat. Not that they're necessarily that much better. It's just, it's more of a personalized relationship kind of thing. Like they're more give and take than the dog and cat, I would say. It's just, it's a very different relationship. You have to have such give and take with them. You have to make yourself more vulnerable to a large breed parrot every time you step them up, every time you interact with them, going in and out of the cage with them. And they have to make completely vulnerable to you with their entire body and safety and everything every time you interact with them. And unlike cat and dog, you can sort of just coexist, and you're over here feeding them or cleaning up after them or whatever, and they're in the house, but you don't necessarily have to interact with them on a daily. Whereas a parrot, you do, because you have to take them out of that cage. You have to give them enrichment and attention and be involved with them on a one-on-one every day. You can't just leave them in the cage and they're going to be chill. You have to physically do things with them every day. So it's a very different relationship. And in that sort of give and take of the trust, you bond a lot harder, it feels like to me, than I ever have with small animal. That would be all pro, in my opinion. A closer bond for sure.
I could imagine that if you're nervous about being around those birds, that those birds also pick up on that nervousness.
Absolutely. I mean, would you want to put your entire body onto something that's like, I'm not going to trust that. I'm not going to be like, oh, yay, let me jump up on that. And you're going to feel it. And if you're freaking out, they're going to think there's a reason we're freaking out here. Like, if you're nervous, what are we nervous about? Now I'm nervous too.
That's fair.
You fake it till you make it sometimes.
That's been my life core, is fake it till you make it. Or yeah. And then I taught that to my daughter, and then I taught her it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to get permission. And then I shouldn't have done that. Hey guys, by the way, if you look up at the tab, and I'm not sure on the phone because I don't use my app on the phone, I'm always on the computer, but there's a Q&A section up there. If you click on that, you can type in your questions for Julie and Heather there as well. And we are definitely open to questions today. I typed in one thing that you could type it in. So definitely throw your questions in there. We're happy to answer those today as well. Okay. And I mean by we are, they are. I know nothing. I'm just here moderating. Heather, what has been your favorite bird all along? I know they're all in your heart and you love them and whatever, but is there one specifically that you love more than others?
Probably. I do love them all. They're all very different. I love Cooper for his shenanigans and he's always getting into things. I love Susie because she's just the sweetest thing. She's very intelligent. But Lily, I think with all animals, with dogs, with horses, with cats, with birds, we all get that one. If we have animals throughout our lifetime, we all get that one special one. And you kind of know when you have that special one that there's just something a little extra. And it's definitely Lily. Lily she's my most difficult bird. She's the one that has the medical problems. She prolapses. Everything that you're not supposed to do to a cockatoo was done to her prior to me getting her. And it wasn't done by an owner that was mean or malicious. It was just, they just didn't know. I didn't know either when I first started with cockatoos. And we had a lot to undo with Lily. Lily was kept under a blanket for about a year before I got her because she screamed all the time. She had one special little girl who I think was about 10 years old. And when this child went to school every day, Lily screamed all day, to the point that they were breaking the noise ordinance in their neighborhood. They lived in a townhouse. And that's something people have to consider too. Where you live does make a difference, because your neighbors, if you have cockatoos, they're probably not going to like you. But Lily came to us and needed quite a bit. Her feathers were plucked completely. Her feathers were plucked off. She had a lot of hormonal issues. And then she started to prolapse about a year into having her. And it was quite an ordeal to go through with her. And I think because I've had some medical issues and Lily has medical issues, and Lily just took to me, and I just adore her. And she's kind of my Velcro bird. Susie and Cooper can entertain themselves, but Lily cannot. So she needs me more. And I'm one of those mama bird kind of, I need to be needed as like a mother figure. She's definitely like, if something happens to her, I can have 100 birds from now and Lily will always be that special one.
You think that they sense the commonality, like, oh, she's having health problems and stuff like that? Do you think they sense that? When are they that intuitive that they can, like, sometimes dogs, I know, like pregnant people, dogs will lay against the belly and know, like, oh, something's going on even before the person knows they're pregnant sometimes. Do you think birds are that intuitive?
Most definitely do. I definitely do. And a lot of you out there know that I recently had a kidney transplant, and that's like the perfect example. Susie and Cooper, especially Cooper, y'all have seen Cooper. Cooper is wild. That boy, oh my
It's crazy.
Lord, he's a nut. And I mean, we love that about him. He's young, so he's just a nut. He's into everything, but he's a love bug. But he is insane all the time. They match your energy. If you're a hyper person in the room, they're going to be hyper. If you're quiet, they're quiet. So that could be part of it too. But when I was sick, when coming home and in the bed, Cooper would come flying into the bedroom and sit on the bed with me. And he was just a totally different bird. He was more calm. He was quiet. He kind of really wanted to stay with me. He prefers Kevin a lot, but not when I first got home from the hospital. And at the very end on dialysis, like he would come in and just sit with me, and Susie they just seemed to be extra good. Like they felt like they needed to be on their best behavior, and they preferred to be with me. Any chance they got to be with me, they would run and sit in the bed with me and just kind of hang out. And they were kind of too good.
You're like, what's wrong? Julie, somebody asked how old Cumulus is. Say that again.
He's 18.
Okay, he's 18. I have a question for Julie. What was the most important thing about your bond with Cumulus?
What is the most important thing? I would say trust. Trust is the big part of parrot life, just in general, but trust. Even with him recently biting me, I feel like there's a huge amount of trust that goes back and forth between us. I make myself very vulnerable every time I put him up by my face. I mean, his beak can do a lot of damage, and he puts his trust in me. I can towel him. I can hold him on his back. I can flip him around like a potato, and he's just like, okay. I would say trust is the biggest part of the bond for me.
Okay. And then somebody said, and Alina, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I understand what this means. Have any of your birds learned a word you intend to teach them? Does that mean, like, Alina, does that mean like I want to teach them how to say Happy Halloween and then they learn that?
So he is learning the happy birthday, since you mentioned that. He learned I'm a good boy from me. I didn't necessarily intend to teach him that, but he definitely picked that one up. It's hard to say for sure because he was so quiet when he came to us that I don't necessarily know 100% what he knew prior and what was just coming out as he started to feel better. Our Budgie, though, we taught our Budgie everything she knows.
I've asked this a couple times in your lives, like, could you put on, like, when you leave for the day, besides driving them crazy, could you like leave a recording that just says like a particular saying or something over and over, and when you come in the next morning, would they probably know it?
Oh, I don't think so. Their whole reasoning for mimicking us is a flock value thing. They are, it's like camaraderie in the flock. So they're going to mimic things that they think that you enjoy or are emphatic about. That's why cuss words are very common for them to say, because when you cuss, it's usually done in a very emphatic way, like you're very passionate about it. So the bird picks up that this is an important word to you for whatever reason. And so they'll pick that up. It's not so much repetition, like I'm going to say that word over and over again. It's more value. That word has value.
Okay, so they're reading your face and they're being intuitive and they're feeling that energy and that emotion, seeing your face, it all kind of jives together into a feeling for them of, oh.
So they're they're picking up on way more things in our faces than we realize we're doing.
Okay. She said, oh, Alina said a word you didn't want them to learn is what she meant.
That I didn't want them to learn. I haven't with any of my parents.
Have you, Heather?
No, the only thing Cooper's really picked up is laughter. He laughs at everything. We laugh a lot around here.
I could see that. I know I laughed a lot. I had a 2-hour conversation the other day and Heather had me nonstop laughing. So.
Remington actually did pick up shut up. I do take that back. There was an accidental shut up. He learned that from Laura, of course.
I was going to ask if that was Laura.
Because she would always be like, shut up. And he did pick that up.
I could see that. Mama Bird, do Cooper and Susie always get along or do they ever have issues with each other?
They do get along all the time. Cooper is getting older. I think they reach sexual maturity at around 6, 7, 8 years old. So I think we probably have some trouble ahead, and I have a lot of learning to do with him. But for right now, he and Susie get along really well. Not too well, though, because we definitely don't want babies. And we can prevent that by just not doing the whole egg thing. But they get along really well. But now when Susie's had enough, she will buck up to him and he's like, okay. But he follows her lead and he imitates. It's like she's his mom. Like he follows everything she does. He will, if I introduce something new to them, whether it's a new food or a new object, and he's unsure of it, he will wait for her to like inspect it. And she's older, she's pretty brave. So she'll inspect it. And then he's like, oh, okay. But he'll come up sometimes. I'll give them both like something to eat, a little snack, like a Nutriberry or something. And he'll come up and I'll give him one, but it doesn't matter. He'll come up and take hers out of her hand. And she's so patient with him. She'll just be like, okay, and go get his. She's really patient with him. I think that if it wasn't Susie, I think the dynamic between the two of them works really well. They don't fight. They do bicker occasionally when she's had enough, but it's all just noise and kind of fussing back and forth. But I do worry about them. A lot of people will keep the male and female in a cage together, but I've heard horror stories that they get along great and everybody does great. And then one day they get along until they don't. And then one day you come home and you find one of them is no longer with you. So we definitely don't keep them together. We always keep them separate. They're together all day out, but they're with us. We're around. But I don't ever want to keep them together in a cage. I would worry sick the entire time I was gone. Like, what if when they're confined in a space like that, at least when they're out together here all day, they're out. They can get away from each other. In a cage, they can't. And that's something that really scares me. I know a lot of people do it, but I'm a little nervous with the cockatoos anyway.
Probably a good lesson for even humans. Make sure you let your spouse have a hobby and get out of the house and go do things. Don't let them be around all the time, because if not, one of these days, one of y'all are going to snap.
Well, I'm telling you, mine's got to get out of the house sometimes, or
I hear you. You mentioned not doing the egg thing. For those of us who do not have birds, would both of you explain how do you keep birds from reproducing?
I'll let them sit on the eggs. Super easy.
What do you do with the eggs? Throw them away?
Huh?
That's just rude.
It is, but that's what to do.
A lot of people will replace the eggs with fake eggs if they have a bird in particular that some birds are like programmed to lay 3 eggs. Like every time she has a clutch, it has to be 3 eggs, or she will keep laying until she hits that number. And so some people have to put the eggs in there so that she gets to that number and will stop. But yeah, there's no incubation period. There's no babies.
How long does it take to incubate an egg?
Oh God, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think
would
it might
imagine-
be species specific.
I would imagine one of the cons of having these birds is egg laying and people that sell those birds for profit and aren't necessarily, you think of other animals like cats and dogs and stuff of not being interbred, of having DNA, testing and different tests to test their joints and all that kind of stuff and whatever. Are there things along those terms that people go through with birds to ensure that if they are reselling birds, that they're doing a good quality bird?
Oh yeah, there's definitely things they should be doing to make sure that their specific birds don't have health issues. A lot of them don't, though. There's a lot of really irresponsible bird breeders out there, unfortunately. And we see specific ones. I'm not going to call anybody out, but we see specific people that are breeding. We see their birds come in over and over again with the same types of issues and always ill. And we kind of go, oh gosh, they came from blah, blah, blah. So of course they have this. And it's really disheartening and unfortunate. And we actually were involved a few years ago in getting someone's license taken away because it was so bad. And the birds were it was insufferable what was going on. So
I imagine there's a lot of what in dog world would be considered like backyard breeder type scenarios with that.
Exactly that. And they're really expensive birds. And so people go through a lot to make money, and it becomes a money-making thing and not anything about being ethical or wanting to conserve, or it's unfortunate.
You can Google it. It takes 21 to 30 days for an egg to hatch.
An egg just in general, or
For a cockatoo.
cockatoo? Okay.
So if that's the case, can a cockatoo lay an egg, once a month? Is that like, like human reproduction, or?
I believe they can lay every 26 hours, like chickens can as well. That's why you'll go out and get an egg a day from chickens. I mean, it's not every chicken, but a lot of chickens will lay an egg a day.
I knew the chicken part, right? But I didn't know like cockatoos, if they could lay eggs that frequently.
Depends on the cockatoo. And like we have an African gray in right now who's just in for boarding, who has decided that she's just going to lay and lay. And so we're having to deal with that. But she's laid probably every other day for about a week now.
Heather, Lily has some of the same problems that Cumulus has as far as, what is it called? Prolapsing. I was thinking of another word and I'm like, that's not it. Does she still lay eggs? And does that make that worse?
Yes, she did lay eggs when we first got her. In fact, when we got her, we were told that she was a 7-year-old male. And we quickly found out that she was a 30-year-old female. His name was Trouble. We changed it to Lily once Lily laid an egg. And Lily,
I see a book in that.
I would say, would you lay like 1 or 2 a month for a few months out of the year. And we don't have any of Lily's past history, only the year prior to me getting her. The lady that had her before me had her for about a year. And she said there was a bit of a language barrier, so I couldn't understand all that she was trying to tell me. But she was able to tell me that Lily had come from a pretty bad situation. And this lady was doing her best with her. Like, she had a couple of macaws. She had, I think, a couple of ringnecks. She had an Amazon, and you could tell she really loved the birds. But Lily, cockatoos are so different. They're just a whole different, they're just so different. And what you can do with other birds, you can't always do with a cockatoo. And they were kind of contributing to the hormonal stuff with Lily. But Lily started to prolapse. She did lay several eggs, but then the prolapsing started, and we took her in, and she's had numerous surgeries like Cumulus. They tuck it back in and they stitch it and they try to hold everything in there. But with Lily, what they did is I can't remember, I think asymmetric cloacoplasty. They did a specific procedure on her where Julie will have to tell you more because she's the expert on this. But I think like the cloaca and make it smaller. So basically her little egg laying machine is smaller now. So a huge problem with us is the vet said if Lily does in fact make an egg and try to lay an egg, it could be lethal for her. So we keep Lily on a depot shot, like it's what they use for humans. We keep her on a hormone shot, and it seems to keep the hormones down and at bay. And so far, it's kept her from laying eggs because I don't know that she can pass it through now because we've made the area smaller so she can't push her insides out, if that makes sense.
100%. Hopefully it does for you guys. Like I said, if you have any questions or whatever, we are getting to them. Julie, before we get to the next question, do you want to say anything about that?
She explained it wonderfully. I think as much as I do about that at this point, Heather.
Kelly, tough. Whew, it's tough.
Okay, so Ashley wants to know what your favorite activity to do with Cumulus is.
What's my favorite thing to do with you? I really like being able to take him outside. I like it when he's up top with me, out on the ropes and stuff. I also really love it though when he's hanging out on the counter at work and being crazy and jumping around and stuff. So I'd say both of those things. My favorite.
We like that too.
It's
Nothing makes my
fun.
day brighter than watching Cumulus throw pens around.
Love it. I just love it. You can just feel the joy coming off of him. And there's no way you can watch him be so crazy and not smile. And I look around sometimes just to see people watching him, even the other staff members that we see him all day, every day, and he's always crazy. So there's never like him just chilling. And they're all smiling too. It's so much fun. That's a huge part of the pros to owning a cockatoo in particular. Unbelievably entertaining species.
It makes all the negative worth it.
Yes.
For me, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are going to get into some of the cons of stuff, but we're about halfway through. Let's just take a couple minutes break here. If you guys want to stand up and stretch, I know an hour is a long time to expect people to be sitting here or watching a video. I totally get it. So if you guys want to stand up and stretch, refill your drink, let's just take a 2 or 3 minute break here. If you guys want to raise your hand and come on and voice and ask any questions and be able to talk to Julie or Heather during this time, go ahead and raise your hand and I will unmute you and allow you to ask some questions as well. Because I know for me, I sit here all day long in meetings like this, and an hour, I'm just like, no. So
I'm never sitting. So I don't mind.
we
Sweep all day long. Sweep and sweep.
Yes. Yep.
That's my life. Sweep
Yep.
and go, no, Cooper, get down. Susie, would you get your man? Susie, get Cooper all day long.
just think it's your man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Get a little bit of below deck watching in the evening when he's a little calmer. And that's about it.
Okay, I'm going to unmute Helen and then Macy Mack. Both of you guys have your hands raised. I'm just going to unmute you and see if you guys want to talk and ask a question. So Helen, you're up if you're here and want to ask a question.
There you go, Lily. Come here. Good girl.
I think she muted herself. Let's see. I'll unmute Macy Mack, if you have a question, feel free to do so as well.
Hi, Birdie.
Let's see.
Huh.
Yeah.
I know Macy Mack and Helen both. Normally, when you say names, it's hard to because I see like icons. They're pre-name, but I think I know both. I know Macy, and I'm pretty
Both
sure
of them too.
yeah.
You do.
Okay, hopefully you guys are back and took a stretch. I know that I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to stretch for a second, but I'm going to let you two answer a couple of these questions. What changes, Heather, do you expect to see with Cooper and him reaching maturity? And I will be right back in 2 seconds.
I'm not exactly sure, but I know I'm kind of terrified because we played pretty hard with Cooper. He doesn't bite. He hasn't bitten. He can hold. He's very oral. He touches everything with his beak. He holds onto my fingers, my hands, and I'm kind of. He doesn't bite, but he does start to get a little hard sometimes, and I'll just immediately stop playing with him and turn my back and walk away, and then come back when he's settled down and go because they get overstimulated. But I worry about him becoming aggressive, especially with 2 female birds in the house. I never had an adult male, never had one go from a youngster into an adolescent into an adult. So I'm really not sure what all to expect, but I have a feeling I'm going to learn a whole lot. Cooper's going to teach me a lot because they can fly at you. They can bite you. I think with the way
Pterodactyls.
wrong with Cooper. And I think I'm going to be in big trouble and have my work cut out for me. I mean, I'm ready for it. We'll work through it, but I think I'm going to be in a lot of trouble.
Did I get my volume fixed?
Who is that?
Hey, I'm back.
Macy.
Hi.
Hey, Macy, how are you?
Good. Got my favorite people all together in one little room.
Did you have a question, Macy?
I don't know if maybe Heather already answered whenever I ducked out and came back in, just about patience.
It takes these birds take a tremendous amount of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worry. Like, I know that they are like the most surrendered bird, and I totally get it. I totally understand. They are a lot. It takes a specific kind of person for sure with these birds, and I can see. I'm not excusing abuse, but I can see why.
They're little pterodactyls.
They are, and there are times when all 3 of them get to screaming, and I'm just like, I have to step out of the room for a minute and just kind of. Whew, and then go back in because they really they just pierce. It's ear piercing. And with 3 of them, when they get to going, it's insanity. And when I'm here by myself, it's fine. But when we have people here and they're wanting to interact with the birds and the mood is in the house is just
Easy.
It can get insane. And I've seen several birds where children have thrown things and taken out eyes, and I can see why a kid they don't know any better. You really have to be able. They're just like toddlers.
And I see Julie every morning in her lives like she's not phased at all, and I know it's nowhere near as loud as what it is in person, but I just my patience. Plants, I got patience for years. Kids, as long as they're not my own, I'm all right. But I don't know.
Yeah, you have to have endless patience. You do. And you have to know when to okay, they're getting ready. I'm going to go put them up for a little while.
Yeah.
Break and come back. And you get to know their routine and it works out. But I like I said, I'm not excusing anyone because it's wrong on every level, but I can see why.
Yeah.
They're not easy.
No, they are not easy at all. And you have to let go of any idea that you are going to provide an environment where they're going to be absolutely happy and content all the time. So they're not going to scream because I'm going to give them all of the things that they need because they are screamers, that they're
They'll scream
wild
regardless.
birds and they scream. Like every time I have like a really loud video at work, I always get the comments about, I feel really bad for them because they're screaming. I feel bad for the other birds because they have to listen to them screaming. Why aren't you letting him out first or them out first or doing this or doing that to prevent the screaming? And that's what they do. They are screamers. Sometimes it is in a context of I'm unhappy or I'm stressed or I'm angry or whatever. Sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes they're screaming because they like the sound of their voice. And I am not saying that lightly. They actually like the sound of their voice. They will put it into a container to make it be louder. They will scream into a room that echoes so they can hear it more. It's not always a sign of distress. So you have to be prepared for that part, because it's like
letting them watch
you don't get to
politics,
control
Julie.
that. Huh?
Stop letting them watch politics. That's where they're learning that from.
Right?
They like the sound of their own voice.
Politics.
Fun fact, Chicago, from what I read, Chicago was not named the Windy City because of the high winds there. It was named way back when, the Windy City, from the politicians being long-winded and wanting to hear their talking all the time and wanting to hear their own voices. That's how the Windy City became the Windy City.
That is really interesting.
That is.
So take that for what it is. A long time ago, I learned that. So I was like, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Kamala wanted to know like how old both of you were when you discovered that you were bird people.
I was 37.
I was in my 40s, but we still had dogs. I've had dogs my whole life. And the last two we rescued from a little group down here called Paws for Seniors. My daughter was, like 14, 15. So we went to this place called Paws for Seniors. A friend of mine runs it, and you get dogs that are like 8, 9 years old. So we got a couple of dogs, and because our other ones had passed, all of our dogs lived to be like 17, 18. They just seemed to live forever. So those guys had passed on, and we were down to no dogs again. So we went and we got 2. But we knew when Grace was 18, 19 out of the house, that's why we chose the older dogs, because we were thinking when Grace graduates, we'll get a motor home and we'll go travel around and we'll get a bird and we'll have a good, nothing ever works out like that. So we started kind of doing our research, but we had the 2 dogs, and the dogs kind of took up we just didn't have the time. And then once they both passed on, when the last one passed on, he passed on, I think it was cold. I remember we had snow on the ground. And I think within 2 months, we went and got Lily. I started looking because I really wanted a cockatoo. And I had watched, I wasn't on TikTok at the time, but I was watching YouTube videos learning about these cockatoos. And I fell in love with Barney the cockatoo. And I think they live out in Pennsylvania. It's just him and this guy. And I was like, Kevin, I got to have one of those big white birds. I really want one of the big white birds. And they told us everything we had learned. Don't get one off Craigslist. Don't start with a cockatoo. Those are the hardest birds. And so we went to Craigslist and got a cockatoo. Kind of how we do. That's kind of how I do it. But when I make a commitment, like I have horses in my back pasture, when I make a commitment to an animal, like they're with us till the end. We have 3 horses that are, we got them all when they were 2 and 3, and they're all in their late 20s, early 30s now. All just pasture puffs, just hanging out, doing nothing. But they pack a couple kids around in the summertime, little kids in the brown pen. But yeah, they'll stay here. When an animal comes here, it's till death do us part. So we knew.
Same way. My animals are family. That's the commitment I made. I'm not going to get rid of them. We had a dog that was abused before we adopted her, and I brought her home, and we had to put a leash on her just to take her around the house to show it to her because she wouldn't leave the linoleum kitchen floor. And I was able to take out a brush, and she was laying in my lap, and I was brushing her. And as soon as she realized I had a brush in my hand, like she was like, "Oh, that feels good." And then it dawned on her like, "Oh, I'm being brushed." And that was the last time she ever like really let me just like hang out with her and brush her, and she freaked out. But I knew that as soon as if we tried to, surrender her, whatever, they would put her down. So we just taught my daughter and everybody, this is the way she behaves and this is her triggers. And if you pat her on the head and she starts to show teeth, then back off and be like, okay, you win. But part of that was, and I don't know if this is the way with birds at all either, that I know for her, that meant like, oh, poor Mystic, she was abused and she got to be like, oh, I rule this house. And so we didn't like put our foot down more with her. And we were like, no, we're in control. We let Mystic be in total control. And looking back now, I realized the error of our ways, because we were just felt bad that she had been abused. And so I'm wondering, like, does that same methodology work with birds at all? Or is someone hierarchy to them? Like, Julie, are you hierarchy to Cumulus? Does he know you're the boss, or is he like, no, I'm the boss, we're good?
He's the boss. And there's a lot of different theories on behavior with birds. I by no means am an expert or anything like that, but my feelings on behavior and relationships with your animals in general is very much positive reinforcement. I am never a negative reinforcement, submission. I'm going to show you I'm the alpha dog, or I don't like any of that way of training. I don't like that mindset. It doesn't work for me. I mean, there may be ways of it working for others, and cheers to them, but I just don't like the power move, the power struggle. I don't feel like that's a relationship. I feel like that's you being dominant over something else that has to rely on you for all of their basic necessities. And I don't like the way that feels for me.
I yelled at my dog the other day. I was being impatient. I was like, would you get inside and stop that? And I told a friend of mine, I'm like, I yelled at my dog today. And he's like, you yelled at Othello? You yelled at him? He was in total shock that I would yell at my dog. And I was just like, it was just a brief moment of insanity on my behalf. And we're all good. But yeah, and I felt bad. So
I mean, don't get me wrong. I will be like, Beans, knock it off, or whatever sometimes too. It's a natural response sometimes. I feel like you don't get a lot of success either if you make it, you have to do this because I'm above you kind of situation, especially in my opinion, in my experience with the cockatoos, because the cockatoos are very much toddler-like. So when you tell them not to do something and you make something a bad thing that's off limits, they're going to want it more. It's going to look so much more appealing to them. And they don't care that you're the hierarchy or you're the boss or whatever. They're going to rebel against that sort of idea, in my experience. And I don't know if that goes for everybody, but
I could not agree more. Yeah, no way. Like with these guys, I feel like I'm on equal playing field. Like it's give and take. It's definitely give and take. And don't feel bad. Like sometimes, hey, our house is loud. I yell. It's a very long L-shaped house. When they're back in the bird room and they're hollering, I want to come out. I'm out here. Thank God we live in the country, because I'm out here. Lily, I'm coming. Just get Cooper. Will you talk to her? I'll be in there in a minute. I'm trying to finish up before I can get back there and get them. But if the neighbors heard me, they probably think, what is going on? It's either the birds yelling or it's me, but we are loud. We have kids here. Kevin is always like, oh, do you have to yell? And I'm like, just go back there and tell her I'll be back there in a minute, or just bring her in here. It's always organized chaos here.
okay, so let's talk about a little bit. We've talked about all the amazing things of having a bird and some stuff like that. A few minutes of the negative, the con parts of having a bird. And then I would definitely want to make sure that we make some time into this about talking about planning for inevitable stuff, because that was like a big part of why I wanted to do this. So let's talk about that. I mean, destructive behavior, different stuff like that. What are some of those cons if somebody's considering getting a bird?
I mean, that's a big one. Yeah.
Like I could take this camera around and show you, oh my Lord, especially with me being down for the last few months. So they'll spend a lot of time out in the bird room while I'm kind of in the other end of the house trying to do this or do that. And what I found that works for me, normally I have all three birds out. It's chaos and we're having a blast and we're doing this and we're doing that. But now it's gotten to where it's much easier. Two's company, three's a crowd with these three turkeys. So I will bring like Lily out for a little while, or then I'll bring Lily and Cooper. But I haven't been doing all three until like in the evening when Kevin's here, because it gets to be too much. But with me being down and them being in the bird room, oh my, when I leave like Susie behind and I have the other two out here, I swear she's eaten all the trim. She has so many toys. But it's like Julie said, it's like that element of the toddler. You know, don't chew the trim. Here, chew your toy. They're going to chew the trim. And I mean, they have done a number on that bird room. I don't know. I'm thinking we need metal. I don't know. They
If
have.
you rent, you're going to lose your deposit and owe money at the end of the day,
Yes.
at
If
the end of the lease.
If you rent, for sure. Thank God we own, because it would be bad. It would be very bad. It's bad, y'all. That room is bad. It's bad.
It's not just the big birds. My trim, as you can see in every morning video, when I get Cumulus out, you can see up behind me, my little red belly has chewed all of the trim on all of the doorways and the closet. And they just, man, they love trim.
So quick, like with the dog,
Mhm.
chew with the birds, it's just chomp, it's gone. And you look over and it's like, oh, there's a whole top of my cabinet gone. And it's just, and at that point, it's like, already gone. Oh, what are you going to do?
Yep.
And you just deal with it.
Yep.
There's some other negative things.
Definitely the noise. They're not cheap. To find a good avian vet, whew, it's very expensive to find a good avian vet. And a lot of people don't even have one in their area. Like, you have to drive hours. So if you have an emergency, it can be pretty hairy trying to get your bird somewhere to get the help it needs quickly. If there's a burn or one bird has bitten a toe off of the other one and you need to get somewhere quick. I see people all the time having to wait 24 hours, 36 hours. It's Friday. They can't get in anywhere. They have to wait till Monday. You definitely have to plan for that ahead. You have to establish with an avian vet, you have to know where they are and how quickly you can get to them. But some people don't have options. Where they live, it's prohibitive. They can't get anywhere for several couple hours.
Not everybody has a Julie next door.
Right.
I don't think a lot of people realize, like, when they'll get a bird, they just assume that a veterinarian is a veterinarian and they'll just bring them down the street to the dog and cat clinic. They won't see you. The majority of your standard veterinarians out there will not see a bird, even to stabilize it. They will not do it.
They won't.
It's unfortunate, but it's just something you have to know about, that you have to find a specialist or a specific veterinarian that's willing to see a bird.
I would imagine one of the negatives, somebody had asked earlier, and I didn't mean to ignore you. Monique had asked, do they poop and pee all over the house, or can they be trained to go in one spot? So that could be a negative too, I guess.
It is a major negative because they do. And they're incontinent when they prolapse and they have the cloacoplasty that Lily and Cumulus both had.
Table.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a constant in our cases in particular. You can get them to station potty train them to where they'll only go at a specific place, which I think is fine. I don't like the potty training on command or on demand style potty training, because what they're doing is they're holding it until you are there to bring them to the garbage can or wherever. So they're holding their droppings in until something specific happens, and that causes a lot of bacterial and yeast infections, and it's not good in my opinion. I don't support that. But
And with humans not going to the restroom when they need to go to the restroom, right?
it's even more so because birds are meant to, their digestive system is meant to be constantly on the go. And so they're meant to be passing their droppings constantly. It's like an all day thing, where if we hold it a little bit, it's not a huge deal. Their cloaca isn't built to have it sit in there for any length of time, or else things overgrow and cause issues. It can also cause issues with prolapsing. If they're holding things in for too long and then they do get to express it and they're having to push out this huge dropping, that can cause irritation. They can strain to get it all out, which can cause prolapsing. I don't like it. I don't like it.
We first got Lily when we went in to the lady's house to get her. One of the things she showed us is that Lily was potty trained. You take her over to the trash can or hold a napkin underneath of her and tell her to go potty. And we learned that was probably not a good thing. Like there was a lot of stuff that was done with no ill will or any malice. It was done with the utmost of heartfelt. But yeah, no, I would say no. And like Susie and Cooper, it's not like they're flying and pooping. And they honestly, I don't think Susie and Cooper have ever pooped on me. They don't. Now Lily goes, it's nonstop. Like I'm steady sitting here wiping the table because like Julie said, with the prolapse, they're incontinent. It's just steady falling out of them. But Susie and Cooper, like when they first come out of their cage in the morning, they're going to go. They're going to come right out, go up on the door, and they're going to go. It's going to go right on the floor. And like whatever they sit on, they'll back up to an edge and go. And it's usually, I don't know, every 20 minutes or so. I don't know. It's a lot. But if you keep something under the, I just wash it up every night with the mop. And when this stuff gets hard, you have to like jackhammer it. We have like the little drywall spatulas to scrape it up off the floor because I'm really bad about it during the day. When they go, I don't run over and clean it up. I'm like, nope, I'll get it later. Right now we're playing or I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And at the end of the night, like I have to break out the jackhammer sometimes to get it all up. It's a hot mess. And the cockatoos, I don't know about other birds, but it's huge. It's a large pile. It is humongous. But you tend to know where they're going to do it. They're going to do it at the cage in the morning. If they're coming in here and they're sitting over there, they always do it right over that ledge. And you can throw paper down and stuff. So it's not too bad, but it's big. It's a lot of poop out of there.
I would have thought it would have been really small.
No.
Okay. I would imagine so that medical bills, stuff like that. I'm guessing enrichment toys, treats, stuff like that. That's all cost a fortune as well.
Yes, toys are very expensive. And I'm kind of addicted to toys. Like, I don't know what it is, the wood, the color, the texture. Like I'm not crazy. I'm just not. Any toys that are new and out there, I gotta have them. I gotta have them. We gotta try them. And you'll spend $30 on a toy to watch them just destroy it. And it's gone sometimes in hours. And you're like, oh my gosh. Yes, the toys are very expensive. And if you don't have it, they're going to find stuff to chew. Susie finds stuff to chew, whether she has toys or not. Cooper and Lily will be good birds and chew their toys, but not Susie. But they have to have the toys or your house is going to get it.
Julie, what are your favorite toys for Cumulus?
I like these. I like balsa wood and Sola balls because he seems to like that the most. At least he destroys it the fastest. I like the Birdie Box Bird Toys has tons of like Sola Sundays and all these different creations she comes up with these textures and things. Those are my favorite for him. I play with them too. I've literally been sitting here ripping this apart this entire time. It's like a fidget for humans.
Whole bucket.
Fidget toys.
Yeah.
That's another good avenue for her to be marketing them. That like, hey, nervous? Here's a fidget toy, piece of wood.
Exactly.
Birdie Box is the best. I just love her. She does so much for people behind the scenes. And she's one of those that does stuff for people and doesn't tell. Like I'll find out later from somebody else and they're like, do you know what she did for me? And I'm like, I tell you, she's something. Dawn at Birdie Box really puts her heart and soul. She is like a bird. Like she thinks like a bird. And I have not found a toy yet that my birds don't just absolutely love. We're crazy about toys.
And she's on TikTok, you guys. She goes live. She'll show you how to, she assembles her toys and stuff like that. So if you do not follow her, if she's not in here, I don't think she is, feel free to follow her. You can get to her from, look at either one of the people that these two are following, and you will find her. And then Lou says, our cockatoo trained us to put paper under where he sits. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. If not, you
Yeah.
have to backhammer.
Yeah. Also
If you
said
don't-
they throw their food as well as destroy their toys. So
Oh yeah, the mess other than the
Throw
droppings, yes. Yeah, everything is going to be everywhere. And you're going to have feather dust, you're going to have feathers, you're going to have food, you're going to have toys, you're going to have everything. That's another con. Speaking of feather dust, cockatoos, African grays, and cockatiels are the top powdery down birds. And we actually have one of our older technicians having to take a Moluccan cockatoo and an umbrella cockatoo from this lovely couple because both of them have lung disease now. I'm not saying caused by the birds, but they
certainly
can no
wasn't
longer
helped.
they can no longer live with them in their home because their lungs have gotten that bad. And it is that bad. Like
bad.
you very quickly, your stuff will be covered in a powder. And it's not like your typical powder. It's like sticky powder. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a lot. And those 3 species in particular are just out of control. If you have any kind of lung issue or allergies or any sort of respiratory anything, you got to take that into consideration.
You also need to consider the fact that you're going to have like air cleaners in your home and replacing those filters frequently.
We have 3 rooms in our house and we have 5 air filters along with our normal HVAC system. And
Right.
yeah, constantly changing it, constantly.
And these days with all the smoke coming from Canada and different places, I don't think you guys in California have had the smoke from Canada, but I know you have smoke from fires in California and surrounding areas as well. How does that type of stuff affect your birds and how you prepare and care for them during those times when that's going on?
Keeping them inside is usually safe enough. I would not bring a bird outside if you are seeing any sort of thing in the air or smelling any sort of thing in the air. I wouldn't do it just to be safe. Like I'm super paranoid because their respiratory tract is so sensitive. So I'm maybe overly cautious on that end, but I see people losing their birds on a daily basis because of stuff like that. So my reasoning is if you can see it or smell it, then it's in the air enough that it could potentially be fatal for them.
It went down the East Coast. Heather, did you see any of that?
Did, and we just kept them inside. You could smell it outside, but only for like one day we could smell it. The next day we didn't smell it, but we could see it. It was hazy. Yeah, we keep them inside because like Julie said, it will kill them. Like they're just dead. And I don't know, thank God I've never experienced it, but from what I understand, and maybe Julie can elaborate on this, there's no warning. Like if you're cooking with a pot in your house that has the Teflon in it and you're cooking.
My next question. Yeah.
That bird is dead. It's just dead. It's not like you look over and it's gasping and you can maybe get it out of the room and resuscitate it or get it to a vet. No. You look over, the bird is fine. You look back over, the bird is gone and there's nothing you can do. So yeah, I'm like Julie. I'm pretty paranoid about anything smelly. Like even when people come in with like a lot of perfume, I'm a little nervous.
Sometimes you just can't tell. They're so little. You can't tell what's going to affect them until it is too late, right?
Yeah, their whole world is totally different than ours.
I mean, I'm paranoid about that stuff with my dog. Like even spraying Febreze or anything like that. It's like, no. So I bought air cleaners and I only have a dog. I don't have a bird, but I know we had some of that smoke from Canada come down this way as well. And my first thought was my dog is 70 pounds. So he's not tiny, but at the same time, he's smaller than me. I'm not 70 pounds. And I don't want him to take the chance that should my house get infiltrated because it's so bad outside that he can't handle that much respiratory issue of that. So when that started happening, I immediately went on Amazon, bought an air filter for my home. I have one upstairs, one downstairs. So All right, let's talk a little bit about the D word. We hate to talk about death. And if we were on TikTok, we probably wouldn't be saying that word. But since we are not, we're on live community, we can. People pass away. People have to go to the hospital unexpectedly. They have surgeries, all this kind of stuff. The two of you, how do you start to think about, and should you think about this? I think so, but I'll leave this up to you guys. Before you even purchase a bird, what are the thought processes? Am I going to be around another 50 years? How old are you? To look at, is it okay to go ahead and get a bird and commit to this bird? I researched that birds can last anywhere from like 80 to 100 years, especially cockatoos, and being in a captive situation. What's the right word, Julie? Captivity, right? Versus being in the wild. Where do we go with that? Like, obviously you get a dog and you expect your dog at the most to live 20 years. A bird is a much different scenario. Where do we go for this? What kind of things do we put in plants?
Yeah, they're going to outlive you some of the time, especially depending on how old you are when you do decide to get them. But a huge thing too, not only that, because I think enough people are finally thinking about that aspect and willing their birds to people and sort of thinking along those lines. But not a lot of people think about the hospitalization part. Any age we can be hospitalized. At any age we can get to a position where we can't care for the bird. And birds, just like with the veterinarians, they are not set up to where you can go to a boarding facility or have a typical pet sitter come into your house and work with them, because they are a specialty. A lot of the boarding places don't want to deal with birds. They don't know how to deal with birds. So you really have to think about, what if I get into a car accident? What if I break my leg? What if I am bedbound for any amount of time? We constantly are seeing birds that have to stay in hospital until their owners are able to take care of them again. And it's great that we've got that ability to be there for them, but people need to think about it. Where are you going to bring them? Who's going to take care of them?
Yeah, because I would imagine like most vet places, like I said, they're probably not even set up for that, but they also don't want the responsibility and the liability of that because of cooking with Teflon and stuff. If they've got a kitchen in their place or whatever, or different stuff going on, that they just don't want to worry about that. Or like you mentioned earlier, the dander, all that stuff, they're not set up with air filters and stuff like that for that as well.
It just takes so much time
Fighting.
devoted to playing with the bird and entertaining the bird and getting, because these guys, you have to entertain them. You have to interact with them. Can't imagine if I just left them in a cage. I mean, I will leave them. I will put them in the cage if we run out of the house, but we're not gone for more than an hour or two. And once I hit that 2-hour mark, I'm panicking. I'm like, okay, eat your French fries. No, we got dessert at home. Let's go. We gotta go. We gotta go. Because I don't know if Susan let herself out of the cage. And yeah, no, they get into stuff.
She lets herself out of the cage.
Yes. Her cage is all wired shut. And then when she lets herself out, then she lets everyone else out. She can open closet doors. Yeah. Susie's
What a bad bird.
a hot mess, that Susie. She's something.
Hey, for all of you guys that have birds, get there on the Q&A. Let us know what your crazy thing your bird does, because that's hilarious.
Oh, she does. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll put them in bed at night, and all the little doors are locked. Everybody's shut. We cover everybody at night. And because if I don't cover them, then they're up with the sun. But if I cover them and close the shades, sometimes I can get till 8, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is really pushing it. That's if we had a busy night the night before and they're kind of tired. But, I'll hear them in there and I'm like, Kevin, I hear footsteps. Somebody out. And you go in there and Susie's on top of the cage. She's opened up the cage. She can put her feet through and just unlatch it and get out. And what we learned that we had to do is during the day when they're out running around in the bird room, she will go on the outside of the cage and open up. There's doors on the cage that you open from the outside to put their food and water in. And she will go around and open those. And if we don't check it at night. Like if I put their food in at 4 or 5 in the evening and then put them to bed at 7, I don't check those bowls again. They're already done. I just did them for the second time. So they're good to go. And I'll just cover them up. Well, now we have to check them because Susie will get out and you'll go in there. Lily's out. Susie's out. Barry's out. She can't get Millie's cage open. Thank God. But yeah, and she gets into the closet. She will go, it's a bifold door. She goes underneath and starts pulling with her feet, pulling, and we'll get it open and then gets into the closet and you'll start to hear things falling. She's throwing food bowls, extra toys, all kinds of little, anything that's in that closet. I have a lot of foraging toys, just kaboom. And you go in there and she's up on the shelf like, hi, Mom.
Thanks for leaving all this stuff here to entertain me.
Yeah.
That'd be like Cumulus. Is he able to open in cages?
Oh, I'm sure he would be able to, but I have to be extra careful in my bird room because I have 2 really small species and then him. And so whenever he's staying over, everything is super locked down tight. I'm way more lenient about it when he's not with me because those 2 are able to be out with each other and we've never had problems, but he easily could take their foot. He could take their head. You could though. You could.
Yeah, we have to be so careful with the cockatoo.
You can't, Cumulus. Don't tell him you could. Cumulus, you cannot.
She's so precious.
So I would imagine we were talking about death and stuff like that. For me, my biggest thing when I started thinking about this, because I had a pet food delivery service and I met lots of people with lots of animals, lots of birds, lots of dogs, cats, fish, you name it. But if you had a barking dog all the time, if your dog just was obnoxious and barked all the time, or you had a bird that screamed all the time. So I forwarded birds videos to Julie that I'm like, check this out. And it was like Gray's saying, help me, on the neighbors, like calling the police type stuff. Something happens to you and in your living will, in your will, whatever you have set up, your trust, whatever it is that's set up, for, say, for my instance, it would be my daughter, right? If I had a bird, my daughter would inherit everything I have. My daughter lives in an apartment. At that case, my daughter would have to decide at that point, okay, I've inherited this cockatoo. Obviously, she lives in an apartment. She's 25. She lives in an apartment with her fiance. They could not have that bird at this apartment. So she would be forced to either have to take this bird in and move herself, right? Find a new place, a house where neighbors would not be disturbed by having a screaming cockatoo, or having to rehome or surrender this bird. So that, I think, Julie, and both you guys can attest, that is something that people need to think about. Is, even though my daughter's going to inherit everything I own, which isn't a lot, she doesn't have a lot to worry about, but is that something that should also be taking into account, aside from where is my person going to be? And like Julie said, you don't know, you could be hospitalized tomorrow. If that were the case, my daughter obviously would have to do something with that bird other than take it into her apartment.
And you want to think about, you don't want to give whoever is getting your bird, you don't want to not only put such a huge responsibility on them, but you don't want to put the financial strain on them either. So it's actually something to take into consideration while we're still around, possibly making an account, setting a little aside every day, since they are so expensive, or every paycheck or whatever. So if they do end up having to take them on, then they've got a little bit of money that they have to work with as well. You don't want them to be completely bombarded with having this bird and all of the costs that come associated with that. You do have to take into consideration where the person lives that you're willing them to, because it's not, a cockatoo is not going to work the majority of the time in an apartment setting. They're too loud and you're going to get in trouble. And if you're renting, they're going to ruin your space and you're going to be paying a lot. And you don't want to do that to your loved ones. So that definitely is something that you need to take into consideration, as well as the relationship that I know that, like, my brother would do anything for me. I know that he would. If I said, can you please take care of this bird? If something is to happen to me, he definitely would do it, but should he do it? Is it going to be a happy thing for him and the bird? Like, what is the relationship between the person and the bird like now? And could you possibly build on that relationship if they are the only person that is able to take them? Start now getting them to have a better relationship while you are around. It's so unfair to have this poor bird who has loved you its whole life, and not only is it having to mourn the loss of you, which they do, they mourn us, they start plucking. It's very clear that birds mourn our deaths. It's not fair to them to have them in that situation and then be thrown into a stranger's home and have to have all new things and all of that as well. So if you can work on that while you're still around, that is the best case scenario as far as I'm concerned.
It's so much more than just leaving them in your will to your survivors. It's making, like you said, making sure that they are really going to be cared for. A lot of people put their stuff in trust, and they create trust for the care of their animals. You see this in the movies all the time, and you think, oh, that's just extreme, but it's really not. It's, if you have a dog, making sure that your dog is well trained enough so that if something were to happen to you, anybody would be thrilled to take your dog in. If your dog's not trained and it's wild and crazy, your relatives are going to be like, I don't want that dog. And kind of the same with birds. Like you said, it's a huge responsibility time-wise. Do they have time to take care of this bird, to entertain it, like Heather said, to play with it and have fun? Or is this just going to be a burden? And now this bird inadvertently, probably they don't mean to, but are they going to be yelling at this bird, abusing this bird and whatever, because they were not set up to take care of your gift as they passed away? They're like, I inherited a bird. So I cannot imagine like someone leaving me their bird. I love birds. Like I said, Bobby loved me to death. So I was very tickled with that. But when I was leaving, I was at the end of their driveway. This woman lives 2 doors down from my parents. We walked down there, and I was at the end of the driveway leaving and could still hear him yelling for me. And all the windows were closed. Like all the windows in this house were closed. Like people walking by definitely know this woman has a bird.
A Moluccan's scream is at the decibel of a jet engine. That's high. That's a lot.
That is crazy. So if you want to know what that level is, go to an airport and be outside, right?
Put it in your house.
It's crazy. You can hear it on TikTok, on the videos, but let me tell you, it doesn't, no. It doesn't sound that, you think it sounds loud when you're listening to the video or watching that. No. When they're literally on your shoulder or even just this close and they scream, like your ear rings, it causes ear damage. Like it is as loud as you think it is. It's triple, definitely.
One of the techs has a Apple Watch, and it always says, it alerts you if like it's too hot outside, and it alerts you if there is a noise hazard. And it always goes off on her whenever the birds are screaming too loud. It'll say danger, too high,
Will
noise
Rogers
or whatever.
That's funny.
Yeah, they do. They're
Probably
so
need to turn that off considering where she works.
I know. I'm like, why do you have that on in here? Plus, it's hot a lot.
Lou said, make sure the inheritor is of the bird is willing and ready. Yeah, 100%. Have that conversation. Don't just leave that bird to somebody in your will, thinking that everything's going to be okay. Have conversations with them, and like Julie said, build that relationship ahead of time. Make sure the bird knows them and tolerates them, loves them, and is
no surprise.
Is mourning you, but happy to see this person at the same time, right?
Right.
It'd be hard if the person lives in another state, but hopefully vacations can happen. Speaking of that, Julie, I know when I first started following you on TikTok, that you taking Cumulus home wasn't a thing yet, and that he screamed the entire way. And the impression that I've gotten, you've said that he's been better about this. Just wondering, like, how was this just every time you took him, he got a little bit better because he got more used to it and he realized that he wasn't being abandoned somewhere?
think so. Yeah. I think it was just he needed to learn what it meant to be in the car. And it wasn't just some random, I'm getting stuck in this thing that I can't see and it moves and sounds and all that for no reason. I think he had to learn, okay, the car means that I get to go and do this fun thing over here. And I tried to make things fun here at the house as well as at the clinic so that both trips meant good things for him.
He has come so far.
Right?
Really has. Just even the bath thing. Just being willing to take a bath.
Oh, I know.
Huge trust, huge trust.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, even for something as simple as a car ride. Like, you have to be willing to go through the car rides that you have a screaming cockatoo in the back seat, and that's not fun. And even less fun on scary highways where people are trying to kill you. And so you're already stressed out. Like, there's so many things that take so much more time with the bird than they do with any other species. Like, I personally think he got used, the water was used as a negative reinforcement. He is a screamer sometimes, and I feel like they used that when he screamed or was chewing on something or whatever. And so we had to work for what? Gosh, that took him like 2 years, 3 years to get him to finally be okay with the water. And it was just very slow introduction to it. And if you're not willing to put in that time and have that patience, I don't know how things are going to go for you.
When they finally do it,
Right.
It's incredible.
Oh yeah.
It's so high. You're like high for days, and then when you do it, they keep doing, and it's amazing. I can't even put it into words.
All right. So we've got a few minutes left. If you guys have any questions or you want to ask a question, if you want to speak to them or anything, raise your hand. Helen, I see your hand raised. I'm not sure if that was from before or if you wanted to ask a question again. So throw that in Q&A if you wanted to do that. What are some, while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, what are some of y'all's final thoughts about people having large birds and how they can even plan ahead of time before they get one of being the utmost prepared for taking in a bird?
I mean, I like people to go into a sanctuary or into a bird store or to someone's house that has one, especially the cockatoos. Not so much other birds, but yeah, kind of too. You need to know what you're getting into. But I definitely, we thought about a lot of these things prior to getting the birds. And you know that when you get the birds, it's still going to be way more than what you think. And it is, but it's double what we thought. Like, we knew what we were getting into, but you always still kind of have that, but you're about to find out. And we found out it's a lot. I mean, and we definitely, you do need to really think about what you're going to do for these babies when something happens to you. Like, they attach so deeply. I mean, to love and to be loved by one of these little things is just, to me, it's just magical. And it doesn't happen for every person. Like, I don't leave your bird to someone as a surprise. Guess what? You're in the will. You have a bird after you're dead. No, make sure, like you guys were, talking about earlier, that your bird knows the person. We have Lily, Susie, and Cooper, and then Bear and Millie. And I have my stepson and my daughter who are just crazy about birds. Now, my stepson doesn't have any birds, but when we leave and go anywhere for a weekend or while we were in the hospital, he will come here and stay with them. And he knows exactly what he's getting into. When we come back, like, the house is trashed because they've just chewed this or done that. But they're definitely going to take the birds. But we are going to set up trust in our will for them so that when we pass, we have money set aside for them to pull from for medical expenses, just expenses. We're going to try to make sure that we have stuff left behind, because what if they need a surgery for $3,000? What if it's just so expensive? There's just so much to them, but there's also so much joy. Oh my God. For me, with the cockatoos, the good way outweighs the bad. Like these guys, as much as they'll drive you crazy, we laugh. Like ask Cooper. Cooper will tell you he laughs all the time. We laugh so much. Just the antics that they get in. And like Julie was saying, it gets into the pen drawer, they throw stuff out. I don't know. For me, it just never gets old. I love it. But you definitely have to know. You have to everybody says do your research. You'll do your research and you'll learn and you'll think, but it's just double it. Because when they're louder than you think, they're messier than you think, but they also love you harder than you think, and they make you laugh, and they do bring a lot of joy, a lot of work, but a lot of joy. I am crazy about the cockatoos. Like if I could have 10 of them, I would. I definitely would, but I can't. There's just not enough of one person to give I'm maxed out at 3 for sure. They're a lot.
Julie, what about you?
She pretty much summed it up. Everything I was going to say. Actually, she literally started it off with the right thing. I'm having video issues. If I click out or something, my internet's being down. Just so you know.
We're getting ready to wrap it up anyway, but I would imagine that, Julie, you have the advantage of, Heather was saying that at 2 hours, they're like, no, that dessert comes with you. But you have the advantage of taking Cumulus back and forth, and you and your wife alternate when you're working and stuff. So someone's usually close to being home or whatever. But I mean, I would imagine if you have a full-time job and you work 8 hours a day plus travel back and forth, that's not a good scenario for a bird. Or if you work from home and you have to be on the phone with customers and stuff, that's definitely not going to be a good scenario. So taking those things into account are probably important, as well as the long care term of your bird as well.
Absolutely. I mean, people do it. People have full-time jobs and birds. I don't think it's ideal personally. A lot of them don't do well in that scenario unless you are able to make whatever space they're in their space, and it's not this teeny tiny cage that you're shoving them into and working 8 hours out of the day, that they have enrichment and they're content during that time. So it can be done, and it can be done to where they are happy, but ideally you're going to have some time with them. And yeah, I have the perfect setup. I do.
Do you see most of the customers? Yeah. Do you see most of the customers that come into where you work are older people that have gotten these birds like at retirement age or something because they have more time to spend with them?
No, actually, it's probably a pretty even mix of older and younger people. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a toss up. I mean, you're in California, your demographics there are considerably different. But I mean, most of the people that I know, like in their 20s, 30s, they're dealing with kids and family members, and maybe they're not making as much in their career. So that bird might be more of a financial hardship. But then once you get to be retirement age, you want to travel more, but you've got more expendable money and you've got more time to spend with them. It's kind of flip-flops all around. And then, but as they age, since we're here at the Hip Senior, by the way, if you guys go to thehipsenior.com, you can register for my newsletter. I'd appreciate that. But as they age, again, trying to accommodate for that planning that we're talking about and making sure that your bird's going to be taken care of. Because obviously as you age, there's more risk of things going wrong. So Julie, Heather, thank you so much for spending an hour and a half with us today. This has probably been our longest live that we've had, but I just knew that people would have questions. There was a lot to talk about, and who would not want to spend an hour and a half with Heather and Julie and Cumulus and Lily? I was hoping for all 3 birds, Heather. I mean, truthfully, honestly,
That is a lot.
I knew that would be a circus, but
His daddy bird has the other 2.
Lily's been so well behaved. She's just like, she adores you. She looks at you with this love and adoration that I've never seen in a bird towards anybody. I mean, we see Cumulus hanging out with Julie and you can tell that he loves her, but Lily just stares at you like, oh my God, I love you so much. I mean, this just what you could tell she just is thinking in her little brain.
But Cooper flies around and on the tripod. You would see flybys, and it would be comical. But yeah, it would be wild. So Daddy Bird has those two under control. And I know she'll sit with me. This bird will sit here with me all day, every day, won't you? Yes. She's a good girl.
I know, Heather, you kept saying you're nervous, but you were totally a natural on camera and visiting with us. You guys, I hope that you have a beautiful day. All the best luck to Cumulus and Lily in their health journeys moving forward as well. I think, Julie, we said Cumulus is 6.5 months now since he's had a relapse.
February 7th.
That's fantastic.
That is awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking with us for this hour and a half as well. I know up until just a few minutes ago, most of y'all were still here. Thank you so much. And if you're watching this in the future, thank you for watching as well, for being part of the Hip Senior Live community. Right now, it's a separate website, but we're working to bring live community back into the fold of the Hip Senior, obviously for marketing purposes or for branding purposes. And so eventually you'll just be able to go to thehipsenior.com to find this and other videos that we are doing. We have things like journaling and happy hour on Fridays where Linda comes in and teaches people about wine and different stuff for happy hour going on, and just all kinds of different stuff that we hope that you're not finding other places to come and join and hang out with. If you go to the register and watch page, you can register and watch the videos there. We always try to provide a replay, which will be in this instance as well. So I will try to get this up in the next couple of days, and everybody reshare that as we post that out, and come and get educated again about birds and hang out with Julie and Heather and be part of the Hip Senior Live community. I definitely appreciate everyone being here. I hope you have a great day. Thanks, Julie. Thanks,
For
Heather.
having us, Marianne.
Have a good one. Take care.
Say bye-bye. Say
Bye,
bye-bye.
Lily.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.